The 2022 NFL schedule has been released, and Saints fans, you now know when you can start planning your trips. I'm Erin Summers, joined by DeShazer. Welcome into our schedule breakdown show presented by SeatGeek. Initial thoughts when looking at the schedule, John, what stood out to you?
Well, of course, the beginning, when you're talking about playing all three division opponents early, because it's always critical. The first stage, the first goal of the season is to win the division. That gets you the automatic playoff berth. And so to come out of the gate playing your three division opponents is something that's pretty significant to me. And of course, you know, in November, playing 4 consecutive teams that made the playoffs last year. That should be a pretty difficult stretch, especially when you're talking about, you know, not having a bye week until later in the season.
Absolutely. The Saints will start at the Falcons on September 11th. That will be a 12 o'clock Central kick, but then we'll have the Bucs here the following week, and then they will be at the Panthers. So those are your divisional opponents to start things off, all out of the NFC South, and then they'll go to London. How are we going to manage that trip? You're going to be at Carolina, stay at Carolina and head to London?
Yeah, that's what happened last time. That's exactly the recipe. Played at Carolina on Sunday, left directly, went to London, played that next weekend. I'm going to assume that Dennis Allen is going to do the same strategy session as Sean Payton did in terms of leaving and spending that week in London. It worked out well. It has worked out well traditionally for the Saints, and I would imagine they would stay along the same lines.
It should be a fun trip to London. Hopefully both of us and a lot of you fans will get to make it. That game is at 8:30 in the morning on Sunday, a semi-primetime game, as it'll be the only game on before the rest of the games kick off later that day. As for official primetime games, the Saints have 3 primetime matchups. They have a Thursday night football game at the Cardinals week 7, Monday night football game against the Ravens in week 9, and another Monday night football matchup at the Bucs December 5th, week 13.
They could be flexed into some more Sunday night games, so we'll see how that goes. A lot of that will depend on what kind of success that the Saints are having during the season. I can imagine maybe even the Cincinnati game being flexed into a Sunday night game. We'll see how that goes. But, you know, playing Tampa Bay in prime time, always a big game for the Saints, especially when you know that Tampa Bay is going to want a little bit of payback from last year's primetime game when the Saints blanked them 9-0 in Tampa. So always something big when the Saints are playing Tampa Bay. Hopefully, Jameis Winston will be able to play in this one. You know, we know in the first time he played his former team, that's when he tore his ACL last year on Halloween. So hopefully he'll be able to play in this one at Tampa.
We'll get the Bucs here early. That is our first home matchup, and then that primetime game on Monday Night Football before the Saints bye. They have a Week 14 bye, so a little later than usual for the Saints. They are going to have some rest built in with the 2 Monday Night Football games. They'll get an extra day there of rest, and then with that Thursday night game, that game being week 7, they'll get an extra kind of a mini bye going into week 8 when their October 30th game against the Raiders. A little unusual, but the road trips seem pretty doable this year. There's only 3 road trips where they'll be on the road for 2 games.
Yeah, and hopefully things will work out. As you mentioned, you know, when you're talking about going to week 14 for your bye, that's a grueling session getting to it. And I understand the Monday night games kind of give you an extra day, but it also compresses the week when you play the following Sunday. So, you know, you get a little bit of rest on the front side, but you get a little less rest on the back side. A lot of it will depend on health, as it always does in the NFL. The Saints played 4 quarterbacks last year and still managed to get to 9-8 for the season. So hopefully the health will cooperate, because going 13 consecutive games before you get that break, where everybody's certainly going to need it by then, but hopefully the health will hold up throughout that process. And if the Saints are playing well, that bye could be at the absolute perfect time. And if they're not playing well, it could be at the absolute perfect time because it's so deep into the season.
Hey, you take a break when you can get it, I guess. We're looking for double digits wins for the Saints this season for sure. Looking at some of our key home matchups, I know everybody has that matchup against the Bengals circled. We now know when it will be on October 16th. That's week 6. It'll be a 12 o'clock game, as JD mentioned earlier. After week 5, things can get flexed, so the time may shift there. But definitely a game that everyone is looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're talking about Joe Burrow coming back, and don't forget Jamar Chase, a New Orleans kid who played at LSU, who was the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year last season. So, you know, you have him, you have Joe Burrow, the Heisman Trophy winner from LSU, who played so well last year in leading Cincinnati to the Super Bowl. Obviously, big. You expect a following huge for both of those guys in the Superdome. For me, I'm looking for the key games to be, honestly, the last 2 home games. I'm talking about the Falcons and Carolina, because you get that deep into the season when it really matters much in terms of division, and those last 2 division opponents might determine some tie breaks within the division, might determine, whether or not the Saints are able to win the division. So, always look at the divisional games late and how they stack up, because they always have so much more enhanced meaning at the end.
Absolutely, and I think the other Super Bowl winning team, or one that was in the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl, in the Rams coming to town also would be a game that people might be looking forward to.
Yeah, because last time the Rams were here, what happened? They were able to win the game in the NFC Championship game, go to the Super Bowl. Of course, the controversial call, and Saints fans have not forgiven him, and of course you don't forgive him for last year either, because had the Rams not lost to the 49ers late in the season, the Saints would have been able to get into the playoffs. So, that would have been a situation where the Saints will be looking at them, Saints fans anyway, looking at them a little less tolerable than they might otherwise. But anytime you get the Super Bowl champs coming to your place, it's a huge game, because it's the measuring stick game. You want to know exactly where you measure up. And for the Rams, they'll find out as the season goes along. When they play, every game is a playoff game because of what you did last year, and everybody wants to measure themselves against you.
A lot of changes for the Saints this season. By the time they're playing the Rams, that will be November 20th, week 11, should have things ironed out as far as who this Saints team is going to be, so definitely will be a good measuring stick as to where they stack up with the rest of the league. It's going to be really fun. We can't wait for 2022 to get here. It'll start with the preseason. There are 3 preseason games. One of those games will be at home. That will be released over the next few days or so. We'll definitely have that for you on NewOrleansSaints.com. You can find out everything there as far as the schedule goes. John DeShazer and myself will have you covered this entire offseason with anything you need to know. Thanks for joining us on the Saints schedule release breakdown presented by SeatGeek.